I should have known something was wrong the moment my sister Lauren opened her front door. Her smile was too bright, too practiced, like she was greeting a client instead of family. Behind her, through the gleaming foyer of her suburban mansion, I could see the perfectly arranged chaos of our annual family barbecue already in full swing. "Deidre, you made it!" Lauren's voice carried that particular tone she used when she wanted everyone within earshot to know she was being gracious. "And Emma, don't you look nice?" My 15-year-old daughter Emma stood beside me in her carefully chosen summer dress. I had watched her that morning, standing in front of our small bedroom mirror, smoothing the fabric with nervous hands. The dress was clean and pretty, but I knew what Lauren saw when she looked at it. Thrifted, secondhand. Not from the boutiques where my nieces Madison and Brooke shopped with their mother's credit card. The contrast hit me like a physical blow as we stepped inside. Lauren's house sprawled before us with its marble floors and crystal chandeliers, every surface gleaming with the kind of perfection that money could buy. Through the wall of windows facing the backyard, I could see our extended family scattered across the manicured lawn, like figures in a magazine spread. My mother, Patricia, sat in the shade of the pergola, her silver hair perfectly styled as always. My brother-in-law, Richard, manned the enormous gas grill, his golf shirt pristine despite the heat. And there were Madison and Brooke, lounging beside the kidney-shaped pool in matching designer swimsuits that probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget. 5 years. It had been 5 years since my divorce. 5 years since Brad emptied our bank accounts and disappeared, leaving me with a mountain of debt and a 10-year-old daughter to raise alone. 5 years of working double shifts as a night nurse. 5 years of shopping at discount stores and clipping coupons. 5 years of pretending it didn't hurt when my own family looked at me with that mixture of pity and disdain. "Emma, sweetheart," Lauren's voice cut through my thoughts. "Would you mind helping in the kitchen? There's so much to do, and you're always so helpful." I watched my daughter's face carefully. Emma had inherited my stubborn chin, but her father's gentle brown eyes, and right now those eyes showed nothing but polite compliance. "Of course, Aunt Lauren. What can I do?" "Oh, you're such a good girl," Lauren gushed, but there was something sharp underneath the sweetness. She should be grateful we let her come to these things, considering. The sentence hung in the air like smoke, thick with implication. My mother's approving nod from across the patio made my stomach clench with familiar shame. I knew what they were all thinking. Poor Deidre. Can't manage her finances. Can't keep a husband. Can't even dress her daughter properly. I forced myself to smile as Emma disappeared into the kitchen, her shoulders straight despite the weight of their judgment. My beautiful, brilliant daughter who made honor roll every semester while working part-time at the local library to help with our bills. My Emma, who never complained about our cramped apartment or our secondhand furniture, who always found something positive to say about these family gatherings even though I knew they hurt her as much as they hurt me. Through the kitchen window, I watched Emma emerge onto the patio carrying a tray of appetizers. She moved gracefully between the scattered family groups, offering the food with quiet dignity while Madison and Brooke didn't even glance up from their phones. The sight of my daughter serving everyone while the other children relaxed made my chest tight with anger and helplessness. Then Lauren's voice rang out across the yard, clear as a bell and twice as cutting. "Emma, be careful with those glasses, honey. That dress might be vintage, but accidents still cost money." The word vintage dripped with condescension. Everyone knew what she really meant. Cheap, old, embarrassing. I watched Emma's cheeks flush red, but she simply nodded and continued serving, her composure intact even as my heart shattered for her. That was my daughter. Grace under pressure. Dignity in the face of cruelty. Everything I had tried to teach her about holding her head high no matter what life threw at us. But as I stood there in my sister's perfect backyard, surrounded by family who saw us as charity cases, I wondered if I had been wrong to expose Emma to this toxicity. Maybe some relationships weren't worth preserving, even if they came with the label of family. The humiliation only intensified as the afternoon wore on. I tried to position myself closer to Emma, to somehow shield her from the worst of it, but Lauren had an endless list of tasks that kept my daughter moving throughout the property, refilling ice buckets, wiping down outdoor furniture, collecting empty plates while everyone else lounged in the shade. "Emma, could you grab some napkins from inside?" Lauren called out as a light breeze scattered the paper ones across the table. "The good ones are in the dining room cabinet." I watched my daughter nod and hurry inside, and something inside me finally snapped. Lauren, she's not your servant. She's your niece. My sister's laugh tinkled like wind chimes. Oh, Deidre, don't be so sensitive. Emma likes helping out, don't you, sweetheart? This last part was directed at Emma, who had just returned with the napkins. Of course, Emma replied quietly, but I caught the slight tremor in her voice. The worst part was how naturally everyone else accepted it. My mother, Patricia, sipped her iced tea and watched Emma work without a flicker of concern. Richard flipped burgers and made jokes about having good help. Madison and Brooke treated Emma's presence like background noise, occasionally snapping their fingers when they wanted something. When Emma accidentally knocked over an empty plastic cup while clearing the table, Lauren's sigh was audible across the entire patio. I guess we can't expect much more, she said with theatrical patience. My mother actually laughed. The apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Her eyes found mine across the table, and the meaning was crystal clear. Like mother, like daughter. Clumsy. Inadequate. Disappointing. The conversation turned to college plans as we sat down for lunch, and I felt my jaw clench as Madison and Brooke casually mentioned their acceptances to Northwestern and Georgetown respectively. Both girls had solid grades, but I knew their real qualifications were Lauren's connections and Richard's donation potential. What about Emma? Asked my cousin Janet, who had driven down from Milwaukee for the gathering. She must be thinking about college applications soon. Before I could answer, Lauren jumped in with the smoothness of someone who had been preparing for this moment. Well, not everyone is college material. Emma will probably do just fine in trade school or retail work. There's nothing wrong with honest labor. The condescension in her voice made my hands shake. I wanted to scream that Emma had a 3.9 grade point average, that she had been accepted to advanced placement classes despite having to work weekends, that college counselors had specifically mentioned her potential for academic scholarships. Instead, I watched my daughter's face go carefully blank, the expression she wore whenever the family discussed her future like she wasn't sitting right there. Actually, I started, but Lauren was already moving on to discuss Madison's internship prospects, effectively shutting down any defense I might have offered. After lunch, as Emma helped serve dessert, I noticed her pause near the sliding glass door where Lauren was talking on her phone. My daughter's face went pale as she listened, and something cold settled in my stomach. Emma caught my eye and nodded toward the house. I followed her inside, my heart racing. What is it? I whispered once we were alone in the guest bathroom. Emma's composure finally cracked. Tears spilled down her cheeks as she struggled to find words. Mom, I heard Aunt Lauren on the phone. She was talking about scholarship applications. She told whoever she was talking to not to worry, that they made sure the committee knows about our family situation. She said there's no way they'll choose me over more deserving candidates. The betrayal hit me like a physical blow. My own sister, actively working against my daughter's future, using her connections not to help Emma, but to sabotage her. There's more, Emma whispered. I've been accepted to the governor's summer arts program. The letter came last week, but I didn't tell you because I knew something like this would happen. I knew they would find a way to ruin it. I stared at my daughter, this remarkable young woman who had been protecting me from the truth about our family's cruelty. Emma had been shouldering this burden alone, enduring their treatment while secretly achieving things that Madison and Brooke could only dream of. Why didn't you tell me about the program? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Emma's smile was heartbreaking in its sadness. Because you try so hard to keep peace with them. You work so many extra shifts just so we can afford to bring nice food to these gatherings. I didn't want to give them another reason to hurt you. Standing in that marble bathroom, holding my extraordinary daughter while she cried, I realized that our family's cruelty ran deeper than petty jealousy. This was systematic, calculated. They weren't just looking down on us, they were actively working to keep us down. But as I smoothed Emma's hair and helped her wash her face, I noticed something else in her expression. A strength I had never seen before. My daughter wasn't just enduring their treatment anymore. She was watching, learning, planning. Mom, she said as we prepared to rejoin the family, there's something else I need to tell you. Something I've been working on. Before she could explain, Lauren's voice called from the kitchen. Emma? Could you help me with the coffee service? Emma squeezed my hand. Later, she whispered. But Mom, I promise you, this is the last time they get to treat us like this. When we returned to the patio, I was determined to take a stand. The conversation had shifted to vacation plans, with Richard describing their upcoming trip to Martha's Vineyard in detail that felt deliberately pointed. I waited for a lull, then spoke up. Lauren, I think Emma has helped enough for today. She should be able to relax with Madison and Brooke. The silence that followed was deafening. Lauren's perfectly applied makeup couldn't hide the flash of irritation that crossed her face. Deidre, honey, she said, her voice saccharine sweet. Let's be realistic here. Emma needs to learn her place in life. Not everyone gets to be a princess. My mother nodded approvingly. Lauren's right, dear. Work builds character. The casual cruelty of it took my breath away. Here was my family, people who claimed to love us, openly discussing my daughter like she was a different species. Like she deserved less, simply because we had less. Richard, emboldened by his third beer, decided to share his wisdom. The problem with people these days, he announced, his voice carrying across the patio, is that they live beyond their means and then expect others to bail them out. I felt my cheeks burn as the conversation turned to financial responsibility. They weren't speaking in generalities anymore. This was about me, about my struggles since the divorce, about every time I had accepted their help when Emma needed school supplies or we couldn't make rent. Deidre's student loans from nursing school, Patricia added helpfully, and that car payment. Really, the priorities some people have. They had been discussing my finances behind my back, judging my choices. My struggle to build a better life for Emma had become their entertainment, their proof of their own superiority. But Lauren wasn't finished. Actually, she said, settling back in her chair like she was preparing for a performance, we've all been talking, and we think maybe Emma would benefit from more structure. More guidance from people who understand how to manage resources properly. The implication hit me like ice water. They wanted to take Emma from me, to save her from my supposedly poor influence. What exactly are you suggesting? I managed to ask. Well, Lauren exchanged glances with Patricia. Emma could come stay with us during the school year. Help with some light housework in exchange for room and board. Madison and Brooke could be good influences on her study habits and social skills. The audacity of it left me speechless. They wanted to turn my daughter into their live-in domestic help while convincing themselves they were doing her a favor. Over my dead body, I said, my voice stronger than I felt. Lauren's mask slipped further. Deidre, you're being emotional. Think about what's best for Emma's future. Actually, Patricia interjected, there's something else we need to discuss. She pulled out her purse and extracted an official-looking document. Your father's will specified a small education fund for Emma. Lauren has been managing it since he passed. My heart stopped. Dad had mentioned leaving something for Emma's college, but after his death, Lauren had handled all the estate details. I had assumed there was nothing left after his medical bills. The fund has grown quite nicely, Patricia continued, but we've been discussing the best use for it. Madison is planning to pursue graduate school, and frankly, Emma doesn't seem to have the same academic focus. You want to give Emma's inheritance to Madison? The words came out as a croak. Lauren's smile was razor sharp. We want to make sure the money goes where it can do the most good. Madison has proven herself academically. She understands the value of excellence. I was still reeling from this betrayal when Emma appeared beside our table. She had been cleaning up in the kitchen, but something in her posture told me she had heard everything. Excuse me, Emma said, her voice calm and clear, but I have an announcement to make. She pulled out her phone and opened an email. I received this yesterday. It's confirmation of my acceptance to the governor's summer arts program for academically gifted students. Full scholarship, room and board included. The silence that followed was different this time. Where before it had been comfortable for them and painful for us, now the discomfort was theirs. Emma continued reading. The selection committee noted that my portfolio submission was exceptional and they're interested in discussing year-round mentorship opportunities. Lauren's face had gone pale beneath her foundation. That's nice, dear. But summer programs don't really mean much in the long term. Emma smiled, and there was something in that smile that made my heart race with pride and fear. Actually, Aunt Lauren, they mean quite a lot, especially when the program coordinators have been corresponding with other institutions about my potential. She pulled up another email. This is from the Whitmore Foundation. They've been following my academic progress and artistic development. They want to meet with me and my mother today to discuss long-term educational support opportunities. The color drained completely from Lauren's face. The Whitmore Foundation was legendary in our state for its support of exceptional students from challenging circumstances. Their scholarships were not just full rides to college, but comprehensive support systems that launched careers. How did you even? Lauren started, then stopped herself. How did I contact them? Emma's smile grew wider. I didn't. They contacted me. Apparently, someone nominated me for their attention months ago. Someone who believed in my potential even when my own family didn't. Richard looked confused. Who would have done that? Emma checked her phone again. According to their letter, they'll explain everything when they arrive to pick me up in about 20 minutes. She looked around the table at each family member, her gaze lingering longest on Lauren and Patricia. I just wanted to thank you all for teaching me such valuable lessons about character and resilience. You've shown me exactly the kind of person I never want to become. The cruelty in her words was surgical in its precision, cutting deeper because it was delivered with the same calm politeness they had been using against us all afternoon. Emma, Patricia started, but my daughter was already walking away. I should go get ready, Emma called over her shoulder. My ride will be here soon. The family erupted the moment Emma was out of earshot. Lauren's carefully maintained composure finally shattered completely, as she launched into a vicious tirade about Emma being ungrateful and delusional if she thought she deserved special treatment. This is exactly what I'm talking about, Lauren hissed, her voice dropping to a venomous whisper. Give people like her a little attention and they think they're entitled to everything. She's getting above herself. Madison and Brooke, emboldened by their mother's anger, decided to join the attack. Emma's always been weird, Madison declared. She acts like she's so much better than everyone else just because she gets good grades. Yeah, Brooke added, with the casual cruelty only teenagers can master, and that dress is definitely from Goodwill. How embarrassing. I watched my mother sit through this character assassination of her own granddaughter without saying a single word of defense. Richard nodded along, muttering something about Emma needing to learn humility and understand her place. But something had shifted in the dynamic. Where their attacks had once made Emma shrink away, now she seemed to grow taller with each insult. She had returned from the kitchen and stood at the edge of the patio, listening to their venom with an expression I had never seen before. Not hurt, not angry, something much more dangerous. Calculating. Are you finished? Emma asked when Lauren finally paused for breath. The quiet confidence in her voice made everyone turn to stare. This wasn't the meek child who had been serving them all afternoon. This was someone else entirely. Since you all seem so interested in my academic performance, Emma continued, let me share some numbers with you. I currently maintain a 3.9 grade point average while working 15 hours a week at the library. I've completed 60 hours of community service this year through my volunteer work at the Literacy Center. I speak conversational Spanish and have been teaching myself French using online resources. She pulled out a folder from her bag, moving with deliberate precision. I've also been documenting our family interactions for the past 8 months. Not out of spite, but because I wanted to understand why my own relatives treated me and my mother with such consistent disrespect. Lauren's face went white. What do you mean, documenting? Emma opened the folder and began reading. July 4th family barbecue. Aunt Lauren assigns me kitchen duty while Madison and Brooke are told to relax. Quote, Emma doesn't mind helping out. She's used to working. August birthday party for Grandma Patricia. I'm asked to serve cake while wearing my nicest dress. Quote, at least she looks presentable when she's working. The precision of her record keeping was stunning. Dates, times, specific quotes. Emma had been building a case study of our family's behavior with the thoroughness of a researcher. September family dinner, Emma continued. Aunt Lauren suggests Mom should consider giving me more guidance while discussing financial responsibility. Quote, some people need to accept that not everyone is cut out for middle-class life. Richard tried to interrupt. Now, hold on. We were just trying to help. Help? Emma's voice cut through his protest like a blade. Let me read you the conversation I recorded last month when you thought I was upstairs doing homework. She pulled out her phone and played an audio file. Lauren's voice came through clearly. The girl needs to learn that life isn't fair. Better she understands now that she's not going to get the same opportunities as Madison and Brooke. Patricia's response was equally clear. Deidre has never been practical. Maybe if Emma faces some disappointments early, she'll make better choices than her mother. The recorded voices hung in the air like accusations. Emma had captured them in their own words, revealing the calculated nature of their cruelty. "I've been in contact with a family advocate through the school counseling program," Emma continued. "They've been helping me understand whether this treatment constitutes emotional abuse, and what my legal options might be regarding my inheritance." Lauren looked like she was about to vomit. "You had no right to record private conversations." "Actually," Emma replied with devastating calm, "in this state, I have every right to record conversations I'm present for." The family advocate explained all the relevant laws to me. She closed the folder and looked around the table. "They've also been helping me understand that families are supposed to support each other, not systematically undermine each other's confidence and opportunities." Richard was turning red. "This is ridiculous. We've been nothing but generous to you and your mother." "Generous?" Emma's laugh was bitter. "You've been using us as entertainment, making yourselves feel better by having someone to look down on. But the really sad part is that you've been doing it to make yourselves feel superior, when the truth is that your children have never accomplished anything that wasn't bought for them." The attack landed with surgical precision. Madison and Brooke looked stricken, suddenly understanding that their cousin saw through their facade of effortless perfection. Emma checked her phone and smiled. "My ride should be here any minute. The foundation representative wanted to meet both me and my mom today to discuss some exciting opportunities." Lauren made one last desperate attempt to regain control. "Emma, you don't understand how the world works. These foundation people, they're just going to use you for publicity and then move on. We're your family. We'll always be here." Emma's response was devastating in its simplicity. "No, Aunt Lauren. You've made it very clear that you're not my family. Family doesn't sabotage each other's scholarship applications. Family doesn't steal inheritance money. Family doesn't make children work while their cousins relax." She slung her bag over her shoulder and walked toward the driveway. "But don't worry. After today, you won't have to be embarrassed by us anymore." As if on cue, the sound of a car pulling into the driveway made everyone freeze. Through the front windows, we could see a sleek black SUV coming to a stop in Lauren's circular drive. Emma's smile was radiant as she turned back to us. "I think that's my ride." The black SUV that pulled into Lauren's driveway was not what any of us had been expecting. It was clearly expensive, with tinted windows and an aura of importance that seemed to command attention. The kind of vehicle that made people notice, that suggested power and influence. Our entire family had frozen mid-conversation, everyone staring through the floor-to-ceiling windows as the SUV came to a smooth stop. Even Madison and Brooke had put down their phones, suddenly interested in whatever was happening in their front yard. "What kind of foundation sends a car like that?" Richard muttered, his earlier confidence evaporating. Lauren was frantically trying to smooth her hair and adjust her outfit, clearly rattled by this unexpected display of apparent wealth and status. "Maybe we should all go inside. We don't want to seem like we're gawking." But none of us moved. We were all transfixed as the driver's door opened, and a woman stepped out. She appeared to be in her 50s, professionally dressed in a way that suggested both authority and warmth. Her clothing was expensive but understated, the kind of quality that spoke of real wealth rather than the flashy displays Lauren preferred. She moved with quiet confidence as she surveyed the scene in front of her. The woman's eyes took in everything. Our family clustered around the patio table, the elaborate pool area, the perfectly manicured landscaping. But most importantly, she focused on Emma, who had walked out to meet her with a composure that amazed me. "Princess," the woman said, her voice carrying clearly across the yard. "Ready for your surprise?" The word princess hung in the air like a thunderclap. I watched Lauren's face cycle through confusion, disbelief, and something that looked like panic. This was not the scenario she had been expecting. The woman's warm smile as she looked at Emma suggested a familiarity that none of us understood. But before anyone could process what was happening, she continued speaking. "I'm Catherine Whitmore, and I've been looking for you for a very long time." The effect of that name on our family was immediate and electric. The Whitmore Foundation wasn't just any charitable organization. It was legendary throughout the state for its support of exceptional young people, and their scholarships were known to launch extraordinary careers. Catherine Whitmore herself was a figure of almost mythical status in philanthropic circles. Lauren's mouth opened and closed like a fish. Patricia had gone completely pale. Richard looked like he was trying to calculate whether he had said anything that might have been overheard. Catherine pulled a leather portfolio from the SUV, and approached our group with measured steps. Her demeanor was professional but warm, the bearing of someone accustomed to being the most important person in any room. "Mrs. Patterson," she said, addressing me directly, "I apologize for arriving unannounced, but Emma's case has been of particular interest to our foundation. We've been monitoring her progress for some time." The word monitoring sent a chill through the group. How long had they been watching? What exactly had they seen? Catherine opened her portfolio and began spreading documents across Lauren's outdoor dining table. Emma's academic achievements are remarkable, of course. But what really caught our attention was something else entirely. She looked around at each family member with eyes that missed nothing. You see, Emma wasn't just nominated for our program by her teachers or counselors. She was specifically recommended by someone who knew her very well. Someone who was concerned about ensuring her future would be secure regardless of family dynamics. My heart started racing. "What do you mean?" Catherine's smile was gentle, but her words were devastating. Emma's grandfather contacted our foundation 3 years before his death. He was concerned about patterns he was observing in family interactions and wanted to establish a support system that would activate when Emma came of age. The silence that followed was deafening. Lauren looked like she had been struck by lightning. Catherine continued, her voice professionally neutral. "Mr. Patterson was quite thorough in his communications with us. He documented his concerns about certain family members' attitudes and their potential impact on Emma's future opportunities. He established not just a scholarship fund, but an entire support framework through our foundation." She pulled out a thick folder and placed it on the table. "This contains extensive documentation of Emma's achievements over the past 3 years, as well as records of her family environment. Your father was very specific about what he wanted us to watch for." Patricia found her voice. "What kind of records?" Catherine's expression remained neutral, but there was steel underneath the politeness. "Records of academic sabotage, records of financial manipulation, records of systematic emotional undermining designed to limit Emma's opportunities and self-confidence." The accusations hung in the air like smoke. Lauren tried to sputter a denial, but Catherine held up a hand. "Mrs. Hayes, our foundation conducts very thorough investigations before we commit resources to any young person. We've been aware of the interference with Emma's scholarship applications, the misappropriation of her inheritance, and the ongoing pattern of emotional manipulation she's been subjected to." She turned to Emma with obvious pride. What we didn't expect was how thoroughly Emma would document everything herself. Her records and recordings have been invaluable in helping us understand the full scope of the situation. The realization hit Lauren like a physical blow. Emma hadn't just been defending herself, she had been gathering evidence, working with the foundation to build a comprehensive case. "Emma has been an active participant in our youth advocacy program for the past 6 months, Catherine continued. She's been learning about her rights, her options, and most importantly, her worth. Something that apparently wasn't happening at home." Emma stepped forward, her posture straight and confident. "Catherine, should we discuss the legal aspects here, or would you prefer to handle that privately?" The casual way Emma used Catherine Whitmore's first name, the comfortable familiarity between them, made it clear that this relationship had been developing for months. Emma hadn't just applied to the foundation, she had become part of their mission. Catherine checked her watch. "I think we should start with the immediate concerns. Mrs. Patterson," she said, addressing me, "the foundation would like to offer you a position as a family advocate. We've been impressed by your resilience and your dedication to Emma's welfare, despite facing significant obstacles." "A position," I stammered. "Full-time, with comprehensive benefits and a starting salary significantly above what you're currently earning in nursing. Your experience dealing with family financial abuse and emotional manipulation makes you uniquely qualified to help other single parents navigate similar challenges." The offer hung in the air like a lifeline. Financial security, respect, a chance to help others facing what Emma and I had endured. But Catherine wasn't finished. "Of course, there are some legal matters that need to be resolved first. Emma's inheritance, for instance." Lauren's face had gone gray. The foundation hadn't just come to rescue Emma. They had come to hold the family accountable for everything they had done. Catherine Whitmore pulled out a second folder, this one significantly thicker than the first. The legal weight of whatever was inside seemed to press down on our entire family as she opened it with deliberate care. Emma's grandfather was extraordinarily thorough in his planning, Catherine began, her voice taking on the measured tone of someone delivering legal facts. When he contacted our foundation, he wasn't just concerned about Emma's future education. He was concerned about her entire family environment. She spread several documents across the table, and I could see official letterheads and legal seals. Mr. Patterson established a trust fund worth $420,000, specifically structured to be completely inaccessible to other family members. He also documented extensive concerns about certain relatives' treatment of Emma and her mother. The number hit us like a physical blow. $420,000. The inheritance Lauren had claimed was small was actually substantial enough to secure Emma's entire future. Patricia's face had gone ashen. That's impossible. Harold never had that kind of money. Catherine's smile was patient, but pointed. Actually, Mrs. Patterson, your late husband had been planning for Emma's future for over a decade. He made some very wise investments specifically for this purpose, and he was quite concerned about ensuring the funds would never be diverted. Lauren tried to interrupt. Now wait just a minute. We've been managing Emma's inheritance responsibly. Every penny has been accounted for. Catherine pulled out a financial statement. According to our investigation, approximately $63,000 from Emma's original inheritance has been converted to other uses over the past 5 years. Money that was specifically designated for Emma's education has instead been used for family vacations, home improvements, and private school tuition for Madison and Brooke. The precision of the accounting was devastating. Catherine had records of every transaction, every diversion of funds that should have been Emma's. This constitutes fiduciary fraud, Catherine continued matter-of-factly, which is a felony in this state. The foundation is prepared to pursue full legal action unless the misappropriated funds are restored within 30 days, with appropriate interest and penalties. Richard tried to bluster. This is ridiculous. We're family. We were looking out for Emma's best interests. Catherine's response was ice cold. Mr. Hayes, using a child's inheritance to pay for your own children's private education is not looking out for anyone's best interests, except your own. But the legal implications were just the beginning. Catherine pulled out yet another folder, and this one made Emma smile with obvious satisfaction. The most remarkable part of this case, Catherine said, is Emma herself. When she contacted our youth advocacy program 6 months ago, she wasn't just looking for help with her own situation. She wanted to understand how to help other young people facing similar family dynamics. Emma stepped forward, her confidence now radiating like light. I've been working with the Foundation's Youth Leadership Council. We help identify and support other teenagers who are being undermined by their own families. Catherine nodded proudly. Emma's documentation methods have become a model for our advocacy training. Her case study will be used to help train counselors and social workers throughout the state. The transformation was complete. Emma had gone from victim to advocate, from powerless child to empowered young leader. She hadn't just escaped our family's toxicity, she had turned her experience into a tool to help others. There's more, Catherine continued. Emma has been accepted not just to the governor's arts program, but to our foundation's full scholarship program. This includes undergraduate education at her choice of universities, graduate school if desired, and comprehensive mentorship support. Lauren looked like she was about to faint. How much is that worth? Conservatively? Over $600,000 in educational and support services over the next 8 years. Catherine's smile was radiant as she looked at Emma. And Emma has earned every penny of it through her own merit and determination. The reversal was complete and devastating. The girl they had dismissed as charity case was now connected to one of the state's most prestigious foundations. The family that had hoarded resources and opportunities was being held legally accountable for their selfishness. The daughter they had tried to diminish had become a leader and advocate. But Catherine wasn't finished with her revelations. Perhaps most importantly, she said, pulling out a final document, Emma's grandfather had contacted other family members as well. Extended family who had lost touch with Deidre and Emma due to interference from certain relatives. My heart stopped. What family members? Catherine's smile was warm. Your cousin Michael in Denver. Your Aunt Susan in Portland. Several others who have been trying to re-establish contact, but were told that you had specifically requested no communication. I felt the room spinning. I never said that. I never requested anything like that. We know, Catherine said gently. Emma's grandfather documented the pattern of isolation as well. The foundation has been in contact with these family members, and they're very eager to rebuild relationships with both you and Emma. Lauren had been controlling our family connections as well as our finances, systematically isolating us to maintain her position of power. Emma pulled out her phone and showed me a series of text messages. Cousin Michael's daughter is actually in my arts program. Aunt Susan has been wanting to invite us for Christmas for years. Grandpa left contact information for everyone with the foundation in case something like this happened. The scope of Lauren's manipulation was breathtaking. She had been sabotaging not just our finances and opportunities, but our entire support network. Catherine gathered her documents with professional efficiency. The foundation is prepared to offer the family two options: full restoration of Emma's inheritance plus penalties and interest, formal apologies, and commitment to family counseling under our supervision, or full legal proceedings, public documentation of the financial fraud, and permanent estrangement. She looked around the table at each family member. The choice is yours, but Emma's future is no longer dependent on your decision. She has a support system now that values her true worth. The power dynamic had been completely reversed. Emma was no longer the powerless child begging for acceptance. She was the one holding all the cards, offering her family a chance at redemption they probably didn't deserve. But as I watched my daughter stand beside Catherine Whitmore, confident and empowered, and finally recognized for the remarkable young woman she truly was, I realized that the most important reversal had nothing to do with money or legal consequences. Emma had learned her own worth, and that was something no one could ever take away from her again. The silence that followed Catherine's ultimatum stretched like a taut wire. I watched each family member process the reality of their situation. They were no longer dealing with a struggling single mother and her desperate daughter. They were facing a powerful foundation with unlimited resources and a documented case of financial fraud and emotional abuse. Lauren was the first to break. "Catherine, Miss Whitmore, I think there's been a misunderstanding. We've always had Emma's best interests at heart." Catherine's expression remained professionally neutral. "Mrs. Hayes, I've reviewed the documentation extensively. Emma's grandfather provided very specific examples of concerning behavior, and Emma's own records have only confirmed his fears." She pulled out her tablet and began reading. Quote from your phone conversation last month, recorded by Emma, with full legal authority. "The committee needs to understand that Emma comes from an unstable family situation. We can't have scholarship money going to someone who might not appreciate its value." Lauren's face crumpled as her own words were quoted back to her. The systematic nature of her sabotage was undeniable when presented as evidence. Catherine continued reading. Quote from a family dinner in September. "Emma needs to understand that not everyone gets to live like Madison and Brooke. Some people are just meant for different kinds of lives." Patricia tried to intervene. "We were just trying to give her realistic expectations." Realistic expectations? Catherine's voice carried the authority of someone accustomed to holding powerful people accountable. "Mrs. Patterson, Emma's academic performance places her in the top 2% of students nationally. Her volunteer work demonstrates exceptional character and leadership potential. What exactly was unrealistic about believing in her success?" The question hung in the air like an indictment. How could they answer without admitting that their treatment of Emma had been based on jealousy and cruelty rather than any assessment of her actual abilities? Catherine opened another folder. Perhaps most concerning is the documentation of deliberate isolation. Emma's grandfather specifically mentioned his worry that certain family members were interfering with communication between Emma and other relatives who wanted to maintain relationships. She pulled out a series of emails. "These are from your cousin Michael, Mrs. Patterson, dating back 3 years. He's been trying to invite Emma to spend summers with his family in Colorado, offering art classes and outdoor programs. His emails were blocked, and his calls were not returned. My heart broke as I realized the support network Emma could have had if Lauren hadn't been intercepting our communications. Michael's family had always been close to my father, and I knew they would have welcomed Emma with open arms. There are similar attempts from your Aunt Susan in Portland," Catherine continued. "She's been setting aside money for Emma's college fund for years, but was told through intermediaries that you didn't want family financial assistance." The scope of Lauren's manipulation was staggering. She hadn't just been undermining Emma's immediate opportunities. She had been systematically destroying connections that could have provided long-term support and love. Emma spoke up, her voice clear and strong. "Catherine, Can you explain about the media attention? My sister's face went white at the mention of media. Catherine nodded. The Foundation's work often attracts significant media coverage, particularly when we're dealing with cases of family financial abuse. Emma's story has already been featured in our quarterly newsletter, which goes to over 50,000 donors and advocates statewide. Lauren looked like she was going to be sick. Her social standing in the community meant everything to her, and the thought of being publicly identified as someone who had stolen from her own niece was devastating. Additionally, Catherine continued, the Foundation has been contacted by several news organizations interested in doing features on family financial abuse and its impact on educational opportunities. Emma's case has been specifically mentioned as a potential focus. Richard finally found his voice. What would it take to keep this private? Catherine's smile was sharp. Full financial restitution, formal written apologies to both Emma and her mother, and participation in family counseling focused on financial abuse and emotional manipulation. The Foundation would also require ongoing monitoring to ensure compliance. And if we don't agree? Patricia asked. Then the legal proceedings become public record. The financial fraud charges become part of your permanent record. And Emma's story becomes a cautionary tale that helps prevent other families from experiencing similar abuse. Emma stepped forward, and I was amazed by the grace she showed in this moment of ultimate power over her tormentors. I want you all to understand something, she said, looking at each family member in turn. I'm not doing this for revenge. I'm doing this because no child should have to endure what you put me through. No mother should have to watch her daughter being systematically undermined by people who claim to love her. Her voice carried a strength I had never heard before, the authority of someone who had been tested by fire and emerged stronger. Aunt Lauren, I heard every cruel comment, every casual dismissal, every attempt to make me feel worthless. Madison and Brooke, I watched you treat me like a servant while your mother told you it was appropriate. Grandma Patricia, I listened to you criticize my mother's parenting while offering no real support or encouragement. The family sat in stunned silence as Emma delivered this reckoning with surgical precision. But here's what you never understood, Emma continued. Every time you tried to diminish me, you were actually teaching me how strong I really am. Every time you said I wasn't good enough, you motivated me to prove you wrong. And every time you treated me with contempt, you showed me exactly what kind of person I never want to become. Catherine beamed with obvious pride as Emma spoke. This was what the Foundation existed for. Moments when remarkable young people found their voice and their power despite overwhelming obstacles. So here's my offer to all of you, Emma said. You can choose to be part of my success story by making amends and learning from your mistakes. Or, you can continue to be the cautionary tale about adults who were so threatened by a teenager's potential that they tried to destroy it. She pulled out her phone and showed them a series of messages. I've already been in contact with Michael's family and Aunt Susan. They're planning to visit next month to start rebuilding the relationships you tried to destroy. The Foundation is also connecting me with a network of mentors and advocates who actually believe in supporting young people rather than tearing them down. The message was clear. Emma's future was secure with or without them. The family that had once held all the power now needed Emma's forgiveness more than she needed their approval. Catherine gathered her materials and prepared to leave. The Foundation requires a response within 72 hours. After that, the legal proceedings begin automatically. As they walked toward the SUV, Emma turned back one final time. I hope you choose redemption, she said simply. But either way, I'm going to be just fine. 6 months later, I stood in the kitchen of our new home, watching Emma through the window as she worked in the garden with her cousin Sarah, Michael's daughter, who was visiting for the summer. The sight of them together, laughing as they planted tomatoes and herbs, filled my heart with a warmth I had forgotten was possible. The family had chosen redemption, though it hadn't been easy. Lauren had been the first to break completely, sobbing as she returned Emma's inheritance with full interest and penalties. Her apology letter, required by the Foundation's mediation process, had been painful to read but genuine in its remorse. She admitted that her treatment of Emma had been driven by jealousy and insecurity, feelings that had grown toxic over the years until they poisoned every interaction. Patricia had been harder to reach, but family counseling had helped her recognize how her favoritism had damaged multiple relationships. She was now volunteering with a single-parent support group, working to understand the challenges she had dismissed for so many years. Richard had perhaps changed the most dramatically. Confronted with the legal and professional consequences of his behavior, he had started offering pro bono medical services to foundation families. His practice now sponsored an annual scholarship for children from single-parent households pursuing medical careers. Even Madison and Brooke had surprised me. Away from their mother's influence and forced to confront their own privilege, they had developed genuine relationships with Emma. Madison was now studying social work, inspired by Emma's advocacy efforts. Brooke had started tutoring younger students from disadvantaged backgrounds. The transformation hadn't happened overnight, and there had been setbacks along the way. But the Foundation's family therapy program had been incredibly effective at helping everyone understand how destructive patterns had developed and how to build healthier relationships. My own life had changed beyond recognition. The position Catherine had offered me as a family advocate had become my calling. I worked with other single parents facing similar challenges, helping them navigate family dynamics and protect their children from financial and emotional abuse. The work was demanding but deeply rewarding, and for the first time in years, I felt like I was making a real difference in the world. Emma had flourished in ways I couldn't have imagined. Her work with the Foundation's Youth Leadership Council had connected her with remarkable young people from around the country. She had become a sought-after speaker at conferences about youth advocacy and family dynamics. Her college applications had been strengthened not just by her academic achievements, but by her demonstrated leadership in creating positive change. The extended family relationships we had rebuilt had enriched our lives immeasurably. Emma spent weeks each summer with Michael's family in Colorado, developing her artistic skills and building confidence through outdoor adventures. Aunt Susan had become a regular presence in our lives, offering wisdom and support that we had been denied for so many years. But perhaps the most important change was in Emma herself. The quiet, careful girl who had endured our family's cruelty with painful dignity had become a confident young woman who understood her own worth. She had learned that she deserved respect, support, and opportunities to grow. More importantly, she had learned that true family is defined not by blood relationships, but by genuine love and mutual support. The evening of our 6-month reunion dinner, hosted in our own home this time, Emma stood to address our combined families. The group now included not just Lauren, Patricia, Richard, Madison, and Brooke, but also Michael's family, Aunt Susan, and several Foundation mentors who had become like family to us. "I want to thank everyone here tonight," Emma said, her voice strong and clear. "Not just for coming, but for proving that people can change and relationships can heal when there's genuine commitment to doing better." She looked around the table at faces that showed real affection and respect for her. 6 months ago, I was angry and hurt, and convinced that family was just another word for people who were supposed to love you but chose to hurt you instead. I'm grateful to have learned that I was wrong. Lauren wiped tears from her eyes as Emma continued. I've learned that real family supports each other's dreams instead of undermining them. Real family celebrates each other's successes instead of feeling threatened by them. Real family protects the vulnerable members instead of exploiting them. Emma's wisdom in that moment amazed me. At 15 years old, she had gained insights about relationships and human nature that many adults never achieve. But most importantly, Emma said, I've learned that you can't control how other people treat you, but you can control how you respond to that treatment. You can choose to let their cruelty make you bitter, or you can let it make you stronger and more determined to create the life you deserve. Catherine Whitmore, who had joined us for dinner, nodded approvingly. Emma, you've become exactly what your grandfather hoped you would become. Someone who uses their own struggles to help others find their strength. As dinner wound down and our guests prepared to leave, I found myself reflecting on the profound life lesson this experience had taught us both. The most important thing I could give Emma wasn't protection from every hardship or struggle. It was the confidence to know her own worth and the strength to fight for the respect she deserved. I had learned that sometimes the most loving thing a parent can do is to stop trying to preserve peace with people who are determined to cause harm. Emma's journey had taught us both that dignity isn't something other people can give you or take away from you. It comes from knowing who you are and refusing to accept treatment that doesn't align with that knowledge. As Catherine packed up her materials and prepared to leave in the familiar black SUV, she pulled me aside for a private conversation. Deidre, I want you to know that Emma's case has become one of our most successful examples of family healing, she said. Your courage in supporting her fight for justice, even when it meant confronting your own family, made all the difference. I shook my head. Emma was the brave one. I just finally learned to follow her lead. Catherine smiled. That's exactly what good parents do. They recognize when their children are showing them a better path, and they have the wisdom to follow. As the SUV disappeared down our street, Emma and I sat on our front porch, watching the summer sunset paint the sky in shades of gold and pink. "Mom," Emma said, leaning against my shoulder, "do you think Grandpa would be proud of how everything turned out?" I thought about my father's determination to protect Emma's future, his foresight in contacting the foundation, his faith that his granddaughter would grow into someone remarkable, despite the obstacles she faced. "I think he would be amazed by the strong, compassionate young woman you've become," I told her. "And I think he would be proud that you used your strength to help other people instead of just escaping a bad situation." Emma was quiet for a moment, then asked, "Do you think Lauren and the others really changed? Or are they just being nice because they have to?" It was a thoughtful question that showed Emma's growing understanding of human nature. "I think people are complicated," I said. "I believe their remorse is genuine, and I think they've learned important lessons about treating people with respect. But the real test will be how they behave when no one is watching, and there are no consequences for reverting to old patterns." Emma nodded thoughtfully. "That's why the ongoing relationship has to be earned, not just assumed." Her wisdom continued to amaze me. In less than a year, Emma had gone from victim to survivor to advocate to teacher. She understood that forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting, and that rebuilding trust requires consistent positive action over time. As we prepared to go inside, Emma stopped and turned to face me. "Mom, I want you to know that no matter what happened with our family, I never doubted that you loved me and wanted the best for me. Even when you were trying to keep peace with people who didn't deserve it, I knew you were just trying to protect us both." Her words hit me like a gift I didn't know I needed. "Thank you for being patient with me while I learned how to fight for us properly." "We learned together," Emma said simply. "And now we're both stronger because of it." Standing there on our front porch, surrounded by the evidence of the new life we had built together, I realized that our story had become exactly what Catherine had said it would be. Proof that remarkable young people can overcome remarkable obstacles when they have even one person who believes in their worth. But more than that, our story had become proof that families can heal, people can change, and that sometimes the most beautiful endings come from having the courage to demand better beginnings. Emma's grandfather had given her financial security and educational opportunities, but the most valuable gift he had given her was the message that she deserved both. Combined with her own determination and the support of people who recognized her true worth, that message had transformed not just Emma's life, but the lives of everyone around her. As we walked inside our home, I thought about all the other families struggling with similar dynamics, all the other remarkable young people being told they weren't good enough or smart enough or worthy enough to pursue their dreams. Emma's work with the foundation was already helping some of them find their own voices and their own strength. The black SUV that had changed everything that day wasn't just a symbol of rescue or justice. It was a symbol of what becomes possible when someone finally gets the support they deserve to become who they truly are. And as I watched Emma settle in at our kitchen table to work on her latest foundation project, I knew with absolute certainty that this was just the beginning of the remarkable things she was going to accomplish. If you've ever felt undervalued by people who should have supported you, I'd love to hear your story in the comments below. How did you find the strength to believe in yourself when others didn't believe in you? Your experience might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. Please like this story if it resonated with you. Subscribe for more stories about overcoming family challenges and finding your true worth. And share this with anyone who needs a reminder that they deserve better treatment than they might be receiving. Thank you for taking this journey with Emma and me, and I hope your own story is filled with people who recognize and celebrate your true value.